Lekgotla, episode 2, action. Welcome to Lekgotla,
where leaders meet to unleash their leadership potential for the betterment of those they lead.
be it at home, at work, in our communities, and ultimately in the world.
Sipo, you look like you are scared.
Focus, man. It's focus.
Focused, okay. You look like you're scared to do the...
I don't want to say what.
Could you solar king?
Clip.
Clapperboard.
Clapperboard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Director, executive producer.
Yeah, hey,
Script
We need
writer.
a budget. We need a budget. Even now, we're shining. So no makeup. Guys, please donate 5 rands each. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome everyone to Lekgotla podcast. We're so excited that you've joined us. Thank you for your comments, for your love, for liking the page. Liking the channel. Yes, not the page. Yeah, liking the channel. When I'm a Facebook person, liking the channel, and please continue to subscribe because we had 450 something viewers, but only 57
Subscribers.
Guys, please subscribe, like, and share, and leave a comment. Talking about comments. Any comments that stood out for you, Sipo, in the past?
Most definitely. I think there was one person that alluded to the fact that Africa needs such conversations. And I think that goes a long way in terms of what we need as a country, what we need as a continent.
Yeah.
And I think that stood out for me.
There is generally a deficiency of leadership, especially in our continent. We talk about the resources we have, the natural resources, the human resources, and all that. And it goes without saying that if we harness just a sense of leadership, Africa is actually a force to be reckoned with. Talking about Africa to be forced to be reckoned with, the BRICS thing that's happening, as
we speak.
As we are recording now, when it airs, it would have been a week after the BRICS conference. Yeah,
it's taking place right now. And I think the good thing about BRICS and such forums is that it's an opportunity for leaders to talk about how do we better our economies. When it was initially formed, of course, it was developing countries.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if all of them are still in developing stages, but the big sense here is that these are leaders coming together and saying, hey, how do we grow as nations and how do we kill the dependence on certain sectors in the world.
Yeah, and talking about leaders coming together, we coined a phrase here that we want to use as our intro. We don't know if it worked. This is what we say in Lekgotla, where leaders meet to unleash leadership potentials for the betterment of those they lead, be it at home, at work, in communities, and ultimately in the world. Please give us feedback if it's too weary, it's too long, or does it work? Does it make sense? Because that's the essence of what we are trying to do, to bring leaders together to unleash leadership potential.
True.
Yeah.
For the betterment of those that we lead, those around us, at work, and ultimately the world.
Yeah, at home as well, because we can be fixated so much on the workspace and government space, whatever, that we don't realize that in fact our most primary, at least in my view, our most primary place of functioning as leaders is at home.
True, and I think it's a big sense. I think we need to not downplay it because this is where we become who we are. This is where we become our most authentic selves.
Yes.
And that's where you'd want to be better led, a better leader. And then you take that being into the workspace, into our community. And like we said, ultimately a greater leader for the greater good.
You find that sometimes a lot of people go through this where you meet someone's son, right? They're like, hey, man, you're so-and-so's son. He's such an amazing leader. And the son goes like, no, he's not. It's like, that one. When did he become an amazing leader? Because we tend to sometimes, project a certain quality at work that is not experienced at home. And I think part of being a health leader is being authentic and consistent across the board. And yeah, in my world, I see it a lot. Right? I see it a lot in my world where, in fact, you have a lot of pastors' kids who don't like church, who don't want to be part of church, just because who they saw their dad or their mom, the role they played at church and the role they play at home is not the same.
And sadly, you also have wives that say, my husband advises all other families and all other men on how to be great husbands, but I don't see that version at home. So we end up being preachers of theory and not necessarily being able to practice the very things that we preach.
But could it be, Sipho, that at work, the leader's emotions are not demanded upon, they're not called upon, so they only need to apply logic, they don't have to be emotionally vulnerable. And at home, their emotional strings are being pulled, and it's difficult for them to become the same person.
True. And I think what makes work slightly easier, Koketso, is the fact that the goals and things that we are achieving are tangible. At home, if you ask an individual, what are you trying to achieve? They'd have to think about it. But at work, we know we're trying to sell so many cases of Coke. There's a drive. There's something that we're working towards. But I think it's rare where people know what they're working towards at home. And until you're able to define that, then you put structures in place. And that's what work provides, whereas home does not. And to your point, it then becomes this whole emotional thing where men leave work, they stand outside of their houses and they wait for about 15 minutes before they walk inside.
I don't do that. I don't do that.
But to your point, that's what we are saying when we're saying work becomes slightly easier than back at home. But talking about home, in today's episode specifically, we want to talk about whether leaders are made or whether leaders are born. And I guess if they are born, that's where family would also come into place. And the aim of this conversation would just be for people to see themselves in this conversation. So Koketso believes that leaders are born, whereas I believe that leaders are made.
All right. Why did you say that? Why did you... Okay, it's fine.
But you said it in the last episode, and I think people...
But I could have changed my mind.
And that's what great leaders do. Have you?
Great leaders change their mind. No, not necessarily, Sipho. I still think leaders are born. All right, I still think leaders are born, and my view is premised, and I know a lot of people will disagree. Right, my view is premised in a scenario where you have kids who are born in the same family, born of the same parents, in the same environment, under the same condition, but one grows to be a leader and the other does not, and in fact, in that infancy, you can already see leadership traits. You can already see this young boy taking charge. I have a 3.5-year-old now. I can already see those, leadership qualities come across in her that in other children you might not necessarily see. Maybe I'm biased because she's my daughter, so I'm seeing leadership qualities. But my view is premised on that, to say, even at the early age, even when they're playing soccer, you just see the leader there. When no one has taught them anything, you already see that in the house, in the chores, at school. The one who's kind of like just stringing everyone along. At crash, you already see who is a leader and who is not. So my view is premised on that.
The one part that I agree with you on is that there's people that are born with certain traits that make it easier for them in their leadership application.
So you agree with me?
I agree that your child might be born confident.
He agrees.
No. So here's my premise. So my premise is that a child might be born with confidence, whereas other kids might have to work on building that confidence. I think people might be born extroverted, whereas other people might have to train themselves in terms of speaking in front of the public and so forth. But that is not leadership. That is a trait. The application of those traits is what makes you a leader. And therefore, I believe that in the practice, and that is why when you've got good teachers, they will pick up those kids and say, actually, you are going to be a prefect. Actually, you are going to be a captain. And it's in the harnessing of those elements that those kids become leaders. And the reason why I say that is that you've got people that are likable, you've got people that have charisma, and we don't see them ending anywhere. So you could think about the most popular kids in high school, in primary school, and sometimes in our age, they're nowhere to be seen because they were not necessarily leaders. They were likable, they were charismatic, they were confident, but that did not necessarily mean they would become leaders.
And I would push back and say, they are leaders, they just did not step up to the occasion. That would be my view, to say this person is a leader because they have the traits.
Who are they leading?
They are leading, they are small kids and they are small friends. Even those popular kids at school, they have people surrounding them. They are leading some, because we said last time that leadership is what? Is influence. And they are influencing people with their charisma, with those traits. They're using those traits, those, natural disposition to influence others. And
assuming they're using them. And I think that's my point. Assuming they're using them. Because remember, if we talk of great leaders, is you need to have a common cause. And I like the way you phrased it last week, right? That there must be a cause and then there must be a care for people. So in the absence of
use
that...
my words to shoot me.
Well, I learn. So in the absence of a cause, you're not a leader. You might possess all the traits. And my point is, leadership is not a trait. It's a culmination of different traits used for a cause.
But, Sipho, a cause, you are talking at, there are different levels of leadership, right? But that child in school who is saying to their 5-year-old peers, let us go and break the window.
That is the cause.
Okay. Okay, I get the point. But my point is, that's leadership already. They are influencing others. They come to school. Oh, in fact, let me tell you, there's a child who recently joined my daughter's preschool. And this child, because they were new, their behavior was different to everyone else's behavior. They came from another school, and we learned later that it was this expensive, fancy school. So they were a bit more advanced for their age. And I saw my daughter's language change when she comes home, and we were wondering, why is she talking like this? Only to find that it was because of this new kid who joined. So just her presence influenced everyone towards a certain direction. She was not trying to lead them. But that's leadership.
It means that child is confident, well-spoken, likable, and Mali took a liking to that child. And that's all it is. Whether that child is going to grow up to be a great leader or not would be on the basis of...
Is she a leader now?
In that small context, probably yes.
Yeah, so but don't what but you're doing this with your hands. don't belittle that little girl's leadership.
Okay, so here's my point. If you are a leader at work, we might call you a leader. The moment you resign, even if you were a CEO, the moment you resign and you're out of work, you are no longer a leader in corporate. So that context has been taken away from you. And I think that's where we generally use this term then. We say you are a leader. Of what?
So if I'm not in a position, I'm not a leader.
That child was in a position within context. So it's context that makes people leaders.
I don't understand.
So what I'm saying is that if that child, in the context of them influencing your child to speak in a particular way, in that context, that child is a leader. But suppose they move to a different school or the kids are no longer friends. The level of influence is no longer there. That child in this one's life is no longer a leader.
I disagree, because what you are essentially saying is if you are not in a position, then you are not a leader.
The thing is, that's what I'm saying, but I'm avoiding using the title position, because leadership is not just about positional power.
Absolutely.
It's context.
Yes.
And that's why I'm emphasizing the word context over the word position, because position has to do with title and positional power, but I'm talking context.
I think leadership is the ability to move people forward.
What I like with that definition is that you're not defining it as a trait. You're talking of it as an ability.
Yes.
The only time you see the ability is in the application of the trait.
Absolutely. It's when you see it. But just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. It doesn't mean when I'm not functioning as a leader, I'm not a leader.
Are you using it?
No, I might not be using it, but I'm still a leader.
How?
Because it's my ability. If given the opportunity, I would be able to lead people.
You know what you're saying is, because you've got big feet and you've got a slim body, and they say swimmers have slim bodies, big feet to help them swim. Because you've got that physical being, it does not make you a swimmer. Until you get in the pool and actually swim, then you're a swimmer. And leadership applies in the same manner.
I don't.
You've got the traits, but until you use them, you're not a leader. You might be good at something, but until you apply yourself in it, it doesn't, we can't call you exactly that. Similarly, so if you think about it, if everybody says basketball players are tall, they've got strong arms.
Those are the characteristics they have.
That's what helps them become better players. Yeah. But it does not mean every tall person with big arms would be a good basketball player.
Yeah, but now then that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if I am because we're talking about this child who is a leader here, then they step out, they are no longer leading anyone. But just because at this moment they are not leading does not now disqualify them as a leader. They can actually apply for leadership positions and say, I have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we still judge them on the basis of what they have done before.
No, exactly. And that's what I think leadership is. Listen to yourself. They are applying for a leadership position.
Yes, and at the time, they are not leading anyone.
Yes.
So they are a leader in that moment, even though they're not leading anyone. They're not leader.
What we're saying is that they've got leadership capability based on past effort.
I have leadership capability, but I'm not a leader. But I'm not leading anyone at the moment,
Yes, but you've got leadership capability.
Yes, but I am a leader.
At a point that you apply it, you are a leader.
When I'm not applying it, I'm not a leader.
No. Think about the definition.
I don't know. Guys, please help us on the comment section. Please help us on the comment section. Help us to understand.
Yeah, and I think I'm trying to...
So, can I interrupt you, Sipo? For me, this is where I agree with you, is where I think good leaders are made. I think leadership capabilities that you have from birth does not automatically make you a good leader. But in the process of development, then one becomes a good leader. But there are people who are born with the disposition to be leaders, and there are those that are not.
And I think where I agree with you is that they are born with the disposition to be.
Yes.
And therefore, the being happens when you apply and make use of those characters.
Yeah. So, okay, fine, fair. If I don't have those dispositions,
you can train them, and that's the point that you've just made. And that's the point around that's my point around leaders are made, right? So there are people who would have a natural disposition to learn how to influence, be more charismatic, be more likable, speak well. And there are people that would have to put in more hours to learn all those things. Yeah. Again, in both circumstances, the application of those elements is what makes you a leader. And I like what you are saying as well around the concept of what makes a great leader. Something debatable, and I was not certain whether to mention this or not because it's not about politics, is if you think about the context, Nelson Mandela, right, has probably all the traits that you've mentioned, right? Mm-hmm. So he's charismatic all confident, has a great sense of self-awareness. And if you look at his trajectory where he completes schooling, goes on to study law, does boxing as a hobby, at that point, the Nelson Mandela, the leader that is praised, is not seen as yet, right? So nobody sees him as a great leader as yet.
Yeah.
But you take those learnings, right? So he applied everything that we've just spoken of. He becomes a lawyer. If you are in law, basically what you're doing is that you are debating with somebody else that knows the law, but you need to be influential, right? These are two people that know the law. It's not a lawyer against people.
Sure.
It's two lawyers.
Sure.
So that's when he gets to learn and apply his influential capabilities. So whether those were natural or not, he gets to practice them.
Yes.
Fast forward to many years, and the Nelson Mandela that we get to praise is that he becomes the guy then that's known as the face of, the face of ANC that would then stand against the apartheid regime. And what I'm saying is that the Nelson Mandela who made a decision in 1994, because context is, that's what makes him a great leader.
Yeah.
It's not his past.
And I disagree with that. That's where I don't agree with you, because what made a man, it is who he is. It's not just what he eventually becomes.
No, but what I'm saying is that it's what he practiced, what he becomes is what he put to practice.
Yes.
He did not grow up and become
there
a
was
leader.
something in him that ignited that sense of doing that already, that another person who is not a born leader does not have the appetite to do.
That we cannot debate, because most of the great leaders have the very traits that you are speaking about.
Yes.
But my point, Koketo, is that he got to practice and groom those very natural traits.
That he became a better leader.
And what I'm saying is it's in that practice that he then becomes a leader. Forget great leader. You're born confident. You're not born a leader. You're born confident.
Yes. You're born confident, but the risk adverse, he is prone to challenging the status quo. He's not risk averse. He's risk tolerant. He is, the person who puts themselves out there. Those qualities, it's what leaders are made of. But what I'm saying to you is that there are people that are prone to risk. Yes.
Forex traders. There are people that are prone to risk.
I didn't say that. The views expressed in this moment do not represent me.
Those of the podcast. You're supposed to say those of the podcast.
They are not those of the podcast. They are those of Sipo.
Yeah, but Mchada, what I'm highlighting is I agree with you that you might be born with natural abilities.
Yes.
But having those abilities does not make you a leader until you put them to practice.
You
are confident. You're not a leader. You then do is that's when teachers take a confident child.
Yeah.
They see confidence, and then they say, that one, I can use that boy.
Yeah.
That's when they're going to start applying the confidence in a leadership context. Okay. And that is why you can't take one trait, right, and say you are a leader because you're intelligent.
True, because most of these leaders, they have a combination of those traits, the combination of that personality, I'm not saying you cannot take someone who does not have those traits and develop them into a leader. But these ones, they don't even need anyone to develop them. They just kind of get in environment and they just start functioning. It's a natural inclination for them.
Yes.
Yes.
No, agreed. But what I'm saying is that before they function, it's before they function, they're not leaders. It's in the functioning, okay? So think about it. Think about
so I'm not thinking. You say I'm not thinking. Okay, think about it. Kasi, yes.
No, my thing is, we know confident people. We know charismatic people.
Yes.
We know these people.
Yeah.
But my thing is, until you apply, whether you applied at the age of 5, whether you applied at the age of 35, until you apply, we can't call you a leader. And you know why? until you notice your child doing certain things, you would not call them a leader. What you are doing is that you're doing the inverse. You're saying she was a leader even before you saw her doing those things.
Yes, it's true, because the ability was there.
The ability.
Yes, and even if I have not seen it, the ability is there.
I have the
So
ability
there
to
is
swim. Am I a swimmer? I'm tall. I am slim.
Okay.
I've all the right makeup.
Okay, so let's transition. Let's transition, because clearly we're not going to agree. How then? I'm not a natural, confident. I'm in corporate. I'm at home. I'm wherever. I need to lead my family. I need to. I have aspirations to grow in the organization, but I do not have the, the
Natural.
the natural, and maybe by calling them natural, we're being stereotypic, because who then said an extrovert or an introvert can't lead? But let's just say, for argument's sake, I am there and I'm watching this and I'm saying, I want to grow as a leader. I'm not charismatic. I'm not confident. I'm actually risk averse. I don't like challenging the status quo. I just, this is just my proclivity as a person. How do we then help that person? Can we help that person who has the aspiration, but in the world they exist, they are not considered as a leader?
Well, after that heated conversation, I wanted to quote something that Stephen Covey says.
Yes.
He says, what you and I are discussing now, he says, this is a false dichotomy. This is a false dichotomy.
Yes.
Leaders are neither born nor made.
Yeah.
Leaders choose to be leaders.
I like that.
So I think to your question, there's elements to leadership, right? We spoke about a cause. We spoke of, the carrying around people. And research shows that there's two things that make leaders successful. One is consideration, which is, do you care about people? Do you create an environment that allows people to thrive? And the second one is initiating structure. Do you have a goal? Do you know how to hold people accountable? And I think when you break down these two, you are then able to see leadership in chunks, right? So you've got a goal, you are given a leadership authority or a leadership position. You then need to start thinking around, what am I expected to achieve? And what are the different elements that I need to tackle? And I think by mapping it out, then that's where it becomes more structural. To your point, if a natural born leader would come in, ask 2-3 questions, and they'd know what to do. But if you're not the typical makeup of a leader, it's just a matter of breaking down what you need to put together.
And I think the other thing that, a person who might not necessarily be out there, you find that your contemplative nature can be a strength, because the leaders who are charismatic, they often don't listen well, right? Because they are used to talking. And I would then advise that, and we're not here to advise, but in that scenario, one-on-ones, those leaders lead better in smaller groups, So use smaller, intimate sessions where you lead in those and people feel listened to. That becomes your strength, because you are quite contemplative. So I would say start there and then maybe grow that group as time goes, where now you are able to speak with a bigger group. But your strength can be that because the other thing is the charismatic leader is risk tolerant. So they're always taking risks. So they are inspiring people. But you, with your risk adverse nature, you create safety for people. People feel safe around you because they're like, this person has considered everything. So you don't have to actually you don't have That's what I'm saying. We might actually be wrong in saying these are natural leadership qualities, because they are not. They are a type of leadership quality. This can also still be leadership qualities, the quiet, introverted, risk-averse, that can be a leader. And probably in the world, we must give these leaders more of a chance to lead and not just lean towards charismatic, extroverted, risk-tolerant leaders.
And I think the good thing as well is that research also supports that, right? So a particular leader might be required at a particular time within the organization. If you think about ESCOM now, it needs a different leader than what it would have needed in the year 2000.
Sure.
So context will always matter. And I think there's one person, Steven Spielberg, in the movie sector.
Yes.
He says how he got into the movie industry is that because he's a shy person, introverted, he wanted a place to hide. And for him, movie creation was that, because it was not about him, right? He would have his steering in the front, and then he would take the back seat. And you look at how every movie director, producer looks up to Steven Spielberg today.
Sure.
But the initiation and that seed stemmed from, I don't want to be in front. I don't want to be with people. I just want to create people and be behind the scenes. And it's the using of his personality and his character that has gotten him where he is today.
So the essence of what we're saying is, in the development of the leader, it is not much in the changing of the personality. It is not much. We need to go back to where we stop defining leadership as this out there, big personality, charismatic leader. There are leaders, so you can still be introverted and calculative and still be a leader. But then what then would define you as a leader is your ability to influence people. This one can influence people through, I have a dream, and you can influence people through, so tell me how you're feeling, and have that conversation and tap into. I think in unleashing leadership potential, we're not trying to get people to change the essence of who they are. It's how do you harness the essence of who you are to become the leader that you already are, not the leader that you become, like you are saying.
Well, the leader that you become is dependent on how you use your personality within context. And I think that's why when you read up on all of these, and neither of us are right, in terms of whether leaders are born or whether they are made. But given context and you studying what is required in the moment is what makes you a great leader.
I'll ask you a question, Sipho. You are in HR, right? And maybe it's a rhetorical question, but it's a question, no. To what extent do we actually make a mistake of appointing people to leadership, especially in corporate space, who, if you check right now, I mean, I do a bit of work in the consulting space, where the average person will tell you that the leader is toxic, right? Is it possible that we appointed them on the basis of their technical skills, but also their ability to mobilize, to make the noise, to but that it becomes hurtful now to people because they don't have the skill. They have a skill of mobilizing people, but not caring for people. Then maybe, I don't. That's why I was like, not sure if it's a question.
In fact, I think the mobilizers often care about people. Where we sometimes miss it is that they're sometimes good at mobilizing people, but not necessarily for what the business intends to.
Yes.
But I think to your question, if you think about how the industrial era took up, right? You had management before you had leadership.
Okay.
So what we do is that we appoint people into management roles.
All right.
In a factory setting, and this is where the essence of the technical difference between management and leadership is. Managers oversee people in a factory line. You take this bottle, you put it here. And as a manager, I just need to make sure that you are doing it right and making sure that it passes the packaging line at the right time. But if you think about the context of the multiple industries that we have, you don't need managers. You now need leaders where you are able to give a vision, a target, and then you create an environment that allows people to then achieve those. The mistake that we've done is that our structures are still about management, but the application becomes different. So to your point, we will promote somebody because they are technically good at dealing with a spreadsheet, and when we call them a manager. In a factory setting, that would have worked. The person that knows the factory the best should be a supervisor. That makes sense. But in the context of the knowledge economy, we are messing it up because now you are appointing somebody who's good with a spreadsheet and asking them to look after people. And that is a huge mistake. And I think the right way of doing things has not been navigated through. But everything that we've just touched on is exactly what then moves this technical person into becoming a leader.
Yeah, and I know some organizations, then they'll take when they spot someone for like a leadership role, then they'll take them to training on how to become a leader and in the managing of the people. I'm just always worried about where you in most instances, when you walk into corporate spaces, the character or the personality or the temperature of the leaders, it's almost similar. It's the hardcore, driver, result-oriented kind of a person. And could it be that it is the contributing factor, not the sole but the contributing factor to a lot of people experiencing depression at work, because we have leaders who are leading more with the strong arm and the personalities that we think, because it's confident, is a risk taker. When everyone does not act like them, then they don't want you in their team because it's about results. So I think we need then to look at the redefining in most of these spaces. To the same effect, we are redefining parenting, because there's soft parenting now, right? So we have realized that, guys, how we have been doing it, there is an alternative to it. Are we open to those conversations of saying, guys, how we have been leading this strong, results-orientated, rah person, hey, go. Are we open to having that conversation? That there's an alternative to this and we should explore it?
And I think that's something that would need to start from the top. If you think about it, sometimes we hire CEOs, and I think that's the tough thing around CEOs, right? CEOs are generally given a 5-year term. Results for a CEO are based on the revenue that you bring in a period of 5 years.
Yes.
To change an organization of 10,000 people within 5 years is a huge task.
Yeah.
Not improbable, but it's a huge task. And when you are a CEO and you decide to take a model that you are defining, you need a clear guide between, I'm going to be a kind leader, but I'm also going to be results-oriented. And because human beings are complex, bridging that gap is not the easiest of things.
Yeah.
But agreed, we need to be able to say we can be kind, improve our engagement scores, and therefore our clients are going to be happy. And if our clients are happy, our revenue targets are going to be up. And that requires leaders that have the patience, the vision, and the ability to drive that mandate.
And even at home, you don't have to be the husband with the big voice to lead your family. You can still be, it's about, like Steve Covey said, it's about making a decision to say, I'm going to be a leader, connecting the people with the cause, being able to care for people while mobilizing them towards a cause. Because in the home context, you'll find that there's wives who are louder than their husbands, right? And naturally, then the husband feels like the nucleus family structures that we've grown up to understand, where the man is expected to be the leader. But then you find that some men who are not outspoken, they don't find that they can rise to the occasion. Is mostly because of the propagated idea of the leader. I'm like, no, guys, the soft-spoken dad can be a leader. The introverted dad is a leader. And all those kind of things. And I mean, we can, yeah.
And as you're speaking, I'm thinking about another leadership skill, probably this we can put in our books, because I've not seen a lot of people talking of it. But I think as a leader, introverted, quiet, it's navigating through that noise.
Yeah.
Because noise does not mean you're a leader.
Yeah.
Good leadership is the ability to communicate direction and a vision. So when you've got loud people around you, a loud partner, navigate through the noise, right? Don't force them to be quiet.
Yeah.
That's who they are. They are loud.
Yeah.
But through your character and personality, how then do you go about navigating through the noise and still give direction?
Yeah.
Loud people can still take direction if you find a good way of laying it down.
Yeah.
So we need to just be able to navigate through that noise. And I think what we are highlighting here is that anybody can be a leader. Like Stephen says, you just need to choose that role and find ways in your context, in your environment, what's stopping you from becoming that person?
With your own personality, with your own temperament, with your own how you are made up. Yeah.
With that said, we might just need to add, there's definite requirements for you to step out of your comfort zone at times.
Yes.
Not to lose who you are, but step out of your comfort zone. Because speaking with people, approaching people, and I like what you said, it's not about the crowds, it could be about small groups. Some people just don't like speaking to other people.
Yeah.
That might be the one comfort zone that you might have to step out of, but you don't do it by asking for a town hall.
Yes.
You just approach people as individuals. So be aware of those things that are stopping you from becoming a leader, but without necessarily converting yourself to want to be like them.
And when I look at it in the home context, I love how the different, I would say it's a leadership office in the home, and it's occupied by who is best to occupy it in the moment. If mom needs to be the leader in the moment, she steps into the office. If dad needs to be the leader, steps in the office, because they provide different kind of, skills and giftings for the moment. And I don't know if there's room for that in our corporate spaces, in our national spaces, where the leader has someone who can, I work in the church space where we divide these things into structures as well, where we're like, in terms of from the visionary and, fundraising and we need this kind of leader to step into this office. But when it comes to caring for people, that we need then another leader to step into this office, then we see it more as an office than a person.
True. And the same applies in corporate as well, where we always advise, don't hire people that are just like you.
Yeah.
For example, whenever I've interacted with executives that are introverted, about numbers, the care part is always neglected.
Yeah.
And what we always say to them is that if you're going to forget people's birthdays, if you're going to forget to say thank you to people, delegate that to somebody.
Yeah.
But you can't delegate that if you've duplicated yourself.
Yes.
So if you've hired more of Bokoketso, then nobody then, makes up for your weaknesses. So it becomes very important as well to always make sure that your team has different characters and personalities in that. In times where it's difficult to navigate that, this is when we do those personality assessments, when we do team leadership and we say, this person is blue, this one is green, this one is... The idea is you all need to be different and therefore be able to lean on each other's strengths, because you won't always be good in everything. And you'd be a better organization or a better team if you've got different people with different strengths in your team.
So what are we saying? Are leaders born or made?
Leaders choose to be leaders.
Leaders choose to be leaders. Yeah.
So, by the way, I just did not want to use this to triumph over you, but there's a research that was done on genetics, and it says 30% of genetics can account for things that you are born with, but 70% are things that are learned. So the conversation has truths to both end around what can be developed and what you are born with.
You know what they say about research? It always depends who is paying for it and what is their agenda.
Well, it works for me right now.
Well, guys, that is us for episode 2. We hope that you enjoyed it. Please remember to subscribe, to like, to share, and to leave a comment, especially in some of the heated conversations that we've had. We would like to hear what your input is there. Until next time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, shoot.
Shop, shop.
Shop, shop. You don't know what to do there. Thank you for joining us for this episode. Remember, healthy leader, healthy community, and a better world.
Please remember to follow us on your preferred podcast platform, and remember to like, share, subscribe, and please leave your comment.